won't be in this class. I'll probably email you a survey that they can take. We're passing out cards to you guys, and you are going to use those cards to write down a word that describes how you're feeling in your life right now. It can be about school, it can be about your home life. You just need to put down one word that describes how you're feeling. If you want to, you can write a sentence underneath of it, but this is anonymous. Don't worry about anybody knowing what you're saying, because we're not even going to read it till the end, and we'll mix up the order.
So the point is we want it to be anonymous.
So you don't have to write your name.
Honest. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah. And then you guys can continue to work on that. We'll just move on to the next slide. So we're teaching you how to stay mentally healthy, which means it's kind of perfect because you guys are learning about the brain right now, so it ties hand in hand with that, which is why I picked you guys. We're teaching you about your thought processes and how you can be more in control of your mind and your thoughts. So mental health awareness has a certain history to it. So not too long ago, there were some pretty creepy, some pretty messed up methods for dealing with mental illness. Like, if you were even thought to be a little bit crazy, you would get put in one of these insane asylums, which I don't know if you've heard about, but you get locked up in basically jail. It's like a hospital, but they really mistreated the people over there. And that's from 1965, so it's not even that long ago. And then if you were really crazy, then they would perform a lobotomy on you. And I don't know if any of you know what that is, but they take an ice pick through the corner of your eye, and then they, hammer that into your brain and mess up all of your frontal lobe. Do any of you know what the frontal lobe is for yet? Have you went over it yet, frontal lobe? Okay, well, you'll get there, but the frontal lobe is all of your thinking and problem solving and your speaking. So after getting a lobotomy, a person's quality of life is pretty much ruined. The only parts of the brain that are left are what controls your body. So pretty much you're a shell of a person. You have a body, but you can't think anymore or talk, or
You're like brain dead.
pretty much brain dead, yeah. Today though, a lot of advancements have been made about mental health. There is a suicide prevention hotline, and that's really important because it's a resource that is available to anyone for free. It doesn't cost anything, and there are people in the medical field, doctors like psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists who are making it their job to improve people's mental health.
So we've come to a new age in medicine. We have mental health awareness, and we are in our culture. In the past, someone with a mental illness may have been seen as a monster, crazy. They were feared. But in fact, mental health wasn't even recognized as a real branch of healthcare until recently. In the 1960s and 70s, there was an entire movement against the practice of psychiatry. Because of this, today we hear about this and see mental illness, but not many understand it. What is it? How do we fix it, and stuff like that. So we believe that this issue could be solved if more people were educated about mental illness.
So to kind of go off of that, the part where it says that a lot of us see and hear about it, but we don't really understand it. It's kind of like on TV, on YouTube. In the media, we hear people talk about being depressed or feeling suicidal, but do we really understand that without joking about it? Because I know a lot of people will see one tiny little problem and say KMS, or they might say, "Oh, I'm so depressed," when something really small happens. But it's part of our culture today that we do that, but it's not really a good thing, and it's more harmful than helpful to talk about mental illness like that when it's a serious thing. So it's important to know that you're not alone in mental and emotional battles.
So with misunderstanding, you feel like no one understands you. They don't know what you're going through. You're alone, especially you're at a stage in your life where you feel like you have nobody that can talk to, nobody that understands you, And with your family, they're the ones you're closest to. So you're afraid of telling them how you feel. You're afraid of them overreacting, and you're afraid that your parents or grandparents are going to criticize you. They do that now. Teenagers are very stereotypical. And so the back in my day stories aren't always helpful either, because they make us feel inferior about ourselves. Like they were better than us, and that just lowers your self-esteem.
So, you know how your parents talk about how life was just so much better before we all had a phone attached to our hands?
I mean,
A lot of parents act like phones are, just the end-all be-all, like they've ruined everything. But that's not really the case. It just depends on your opinion. But that can lead to really bad feelings when your parents are making you feel like you're inferior to them because you have a phone, because you're in this time period. It's not something that you can control. Friends are like family, but you get to choose them. So you want them to be able to understand you, and sometimes it's not easy to do that when you expect them to understand you without them being able to read your mind. You don't feel comfortable telling them everything that goes on in your life. So it can cause conflict with friends, and teachers can seem so demanding, Miss Kitty.
Not me.
Teachers can seem like they're asking so much from you. Like, do you even have a personal life? Is what it feels like sometimes, right? Do they
Me.
Do they even have a life outside of school?
Who, me? I
Teachers.
We
Teachers. Sometimes it feels like they don't, do they? Like the only thing that they're worried about is giving you another
The
piece of
pressure you're
homework
put
to do.
under. I mean, that pressure hurts your mental state. I mean, you may not want to admit it, but it does. Every single student in here. Every student that's been in here before, whether your teacher is really light on you, whether they're heavy on you, you're getting put through that. That's challenging. I mean, it could help you or it could hurt you.
Well, Miss Katie's a pretty good teacher. And
Yes.
yes, she is. And she tries to be pretty fun with you as long as you do what she says and you're a good student. But everyone has things going on outside of school. And once you get schoolwork piled on top of that, sometimes it can feel like you're just overloaded with things to do. So, I'm sure you're familiar with the term "okay boomer." So I have a question for you, and that is, what have you heard older generations say about teenagers? Anyway, you don't have to raise your hand, you can just say it out loud. I'm not gonna call on you. Go.
Smarties.
Smarties.
Snowflakes.
Snowflakes, yeah.
I was about to say.
Sensitive. Anything else? Have your parents ever called you lazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often.
All the time.
Addicted to your phones?
Yeah.
Anything
They're
else?
not
Glued to my Xbox.
Entitled.
Entitled. Anything else? It doesn't have to be boomers too, it can be your parents. So what are some things that they generalize about teenagers?
How about that they're disrespectful?
Yeah? Have you ever heard that from your parents, that you're disrespectful all the time? So, you've heard some of the things we've said. Do you agree or disagree? So do you think that we're entitled? Do you think that we're selfish, that we're addicted to our phones? Does anyone agree with that? Okay. If you disagree, how do you think we actually feel about ourselves? In contrast to that. Yeah.
Scared.
Scared. Good.
Some people they try to hide their pain away. That's why they're on it.
Right. See, there's another side to having a phone all the time, because there's a negative side to it, you know? Not all of us choose to be on our phones all the time.
Alright, so more than just feeling blue, feeling down, dealing with depression, anxiety, and other mental disorders.
So this is going to kind of tie into the physical part, the science part that you guys are talking about.
These underline are all your parts of the brain, and then what's under them are actual mental disorders that affect them.
So parts like the cerebrum, which is this entire big part of
Right here.
the front. It's most of it. So, you know anyone with ADHD or ADD, that affects that part of the brain. The cerebral cortex, which is all that, is ADHD, anxiety, bipolar, and so on. So having a mental illness is not just, you're emotional or you're moody. There's an actual physical part to it. So there are some signs that go along with having mental health problems, like being anxious all the time, being on edge, irrational, problems with sleep. You could probably recognize this in some people that you see at school. So if you might notice these things, you might want to go up and talk to that person because you don't really know if they could be suffering from something. So self-esteem, low self-esteem especially, is kind of weird because your brain, it's like it's having an argument with itself. Like one moment you're thinking that things are going well in your life and you're doing okay, but the next moment you're thinking about how you're a terrible person.
So where does our low self-esteem come from? Maybe social media, Instagram, Twitter, all that. Maybe you're looking at a magazine and you see these beauty girls who have a lot of makeup on and they're so talented at it. Or like your weight. I mean, all of these things, they bring down your self-esteem. Gym class, sports, all of that. Grades, especially grades.
I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of societal pressures and parent pressures and teacher pressures that make you think that you have to be perfect. Like in gym class, if you're the slowest kid, or
You don't get
on
picked.
social media, if you get the least likes, or if you're the last person picked to be on a team, or if you have the lowest grades, it can make you feel like you're just less of a person.
You're not as good as someone else.
So the low self-esteem is linked to your physical brain. Your neurons are constantly making connections. Every time you think of something, every time you do something, they're making connections. And affirmations are things that you tell yourself over and over again. So once your neurons get used to making the same connections and they get used to you telling yourself that you're a terrible person or that you're bad at something, they get used to it and they get really good at it. Our neurons are so advanced that it can become way too comfortable to have negative thoughts about yourself because they just get good at it. It's like when you're reading a book. When you learn to read the first time, it's difficult, but the more that you do it, you become really good at it. Like you can read now a lot better than you could back then. It's the same way when you're thinking negatively about yourself. The first time, it may be hard to pick something out that you're not good at, but then the more that you keep thinking about it, the more it's going to consume you.
So learning how to control it. Well, these billions of neurons are communicating with your brain every second. Everything you're doing all the time, they're telling your brain some message. And then some of this is automatically, and then neurons will be linked to your senses, your eye, what you see, what you smell, what you hear, all that. The other neurons are controlled by your thoughts. That's right. You are responsible. There are some things you cannot control, like your senses, and there are some things where you are in complete control. You might not feel that way, but you are. So if you have the ability to control your self-image, which, I mean, you might be lucky enough to, but some don't, you can feel empowered enough to love what you look like and what your personality is. With just enough practice, thinking positively can become a natural thing, like riding a bike or reading.
So some sources of stress would be grades or sports or maybe your parents or your self-image or schoolwork. Physically, stress and anxiety are too complicated to be pinned down to only one region of the brain. And stress is caused by the interactions of multiple parts of your brain. The cognitive brain is more towards the frontal lobe and it's about your thinking and your problem solving. And the emotional brain is more towards the center of your brain, which is like your amygdala, which controls feelings. And there's also the sensory regions that we talked about, like there's a part of the back called the occipital lobe that works with your eyes. And when all of these things are firing off and making connections at once, like your brain is constantly, neurons are constantly firing, you're constantly getting input to your brain. And when so many things are going on, it can be difficult for the brain to sort through all of that information, and it can cause stress. So there are some relief methods for stress, which would be like talking to your family, talking to your friends about what's bothering you. Mindful minutes are important, where you focus on just what's going on in your head. Maybe not so much being active, but just really focusing on like your breathing or maybe stretching and relaxing.
I mean, probably a common one would be listening to music or eating a snack. I mean, that's most of what you see nowadays is plug in your earbuds and just go away at it. It helps you calm down, which it can work.
Taking a bath or a nap also sometimes helps. Basically, it depends on the person, but whatever you can do to be calm can relieve stress. Any examples of things that you guys do to relieve your stress?
Punching walls.
Punching walls, that's not as good, but I mean, it
And
works.
get your
I
anger
really
out.
broke my
If
head.
it helps you, okay, just don't hurt your
Use your
hands
punching
doing
bag.
that.
That's
I
what
broke
they're
my hand
designed
today
for.
because of that. I feel like
Oh, I play basketball sometimes, like listen to music. That's what I talk to when you're my age.
That's
They're
kind of
not
like
what it
me.
says.
Soccer helps me with my stress. I like drawing. Yeah, that's another pretty common one. Pretty much, it depends on the person, but there are a lot of different ways to relieve stress.
So, how do you keep a healthy mind healthy? So, keeping your mind sharp. Being a student can be really stressful, as we mentioned, but exercising and training your brain can make problem solving a lot easier. Another way to improve your thinking is by knowing more about your brain in general.
So, it's kind of like you and your brain are newlyweds, right? But you need to get to know your brain, which is kind of the whole point of what Miss Kitty's about to teach you. But knowing more about your brain can help you understand your feelings. Like, your brain weighs 3.3 pounds. It is the commander of the nervous system, and it contains around 86 billion neurons. Crazy. That's so many neurons with our nerve cells. So we have an activity for you guys that involves using your brain cells and increasing your brain activity, exercising your brain. So we got some illusions. This first one, I want to know, people in the back of the room, what do you see?
Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein. Does anyone see something that's not Albert Einstein? Anybody?
A girl.
A girl? Yeah?
Anybody know Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, depending on how you look at it, it can look like Albert Einstein or Marilyn Monroe. So whoever, it was you that saw Marilyn Monroe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe he was using a little more brain cells than you guys were, because automatically you saw Albert Einstein, but it took some higher thinking to see Marilyn Monroe.
Well, I guess I'm not on that higher thinking.
So, does anybody see any circles right now?
No.
Yeah, I do.
Do? How many do you see?
Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Anybody?
17?
I see 5.
Okay,
17?
17. Wow. So,
Anybody not know where they're at?
originally when I saw this, I didn't see any.
Oh, okay, I see
But
some
look,
of the other ones now.
Look, there's a circle there. There's a circle there.
Oh, I see it now. Y'all didn't see it? That's
See that?
I didn't see the other ones, but I see this.
It actually helps you look at a black circle because then
I did.
your peripheral vision
Yeah,
finds it.
that did help me though.
I seen the first row, but I didn't see none of the other ones until I think he said 17.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it might not, when you look at an illusion, you might not immediately see it, but if you think about it, you can find a lot of different things. Here's an audio illusion, and it's pretty on theme because I found one that was Bill Nye themed.
Am I the science guy? Science guy. Bill, 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 Bill,
something. I'm going to play it again. You guys are going to close your eyes and not look at the pictures on the screen and tell me what you immediately hear.
Am I the science guy?
You might be able to hear some things that weren't pictures on the screen.
Am I the science?
Okay,
I still see the same thing.
I heard
Okay.
Heyo. I heard somebody
So
go,
what if we
"Heyo."
told you that the words were not changing? It constantly said Bill, but what your brain did was it saw the pictures, so it started hearing that word.
Oh, good, because I only heard Bill for the whole thing. I was
I heard like 6 different things. I heard Bill, Mayo, Pale, Mayo, all that other stuff.
it's pretty cool how your brain can make connections based on sight and hearing. And when you take one of them away, like imagine being blind and just hearing that, you wouldn't think of any of the, you wouldn't think of Pale or Mayo. It's pretty cool how your brain works like that. It's up there. So that's just an example of an illusion. First one? Where'd it go? I'm gonna have to rapid fire quickly. Okay, so a more scientific explanation of your brain and illusions is that illusions work because they compromise how your brain and your eyes and your ears process information, auditory or visual. I think there's other illusions, like there's one where there can be like a fake hand sitting in front of you, and if someone hits that, then you feel it. There's other kinds, but more commonly you're gonna see like the visual illusions.
Or like your colors.
Right.
Who's ever handed you where it'll be they'll write out a color, but they'll have like the color of that word different from it. So you wanna say what you see, but
We're gonna have a
don't
little
read it.
contest. Who wants to volunteer? Alright, you two are first, Parker and Ellie.
No,
Alright. I thought you were Parker.
we look alike.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's
Wait, who?
his head.
Alright. We're gonna have a contest between Noah and Ellie. Who wants to go first?
I live first.
Alright, you can come up here. It'd be easier, probably. So, we're gonna see how fast Ellie can get through this entire thing. If you do mess up, you don't have to go back to the beginning.
So you just want to read the word. You don't want to say the color you
No,
see. Just read
opposite.
it.
Say the color of the word, not what it actually says. So like the first one,
Oh, God.
you're gonna say red for the first one. Alright, ready?
Wait, what? So we say the color, not the word?
You say the color, not the word. So you're looking at the color, not what it actually says.
All right, be quiet. Listen up.
You can come closer if you want to. Alright, tell me when you're ready. Go.
Red, black, green, blue, yellow, red, blue, yellow, black, red, green, black, black, blue, red, black, yellow, green, black, black, yellow, green, red, blue, black, yellow, green, green, blue, yellow, red, black, green, red, white, black, blue, green, blue, red, black.
Okay, so Ellie took 40 seconds.
Oh, you're about to destroy me.
that long?
You're about to destroy me.
Alright, so what did you think of that?
It was tricky saying a word.
It was tricky.
Seeing another color onto it and then.
Well, it's because because you're trying to use two different parts of your brain at once. You're trying to use the part that reads and you're trying to use the part that sees colors. So it's like different parts of your brain are trying to work at once and it confuses you.
I got halfway through and forgot which one I was doing.
Alright, we're gonna see if Noah can beat Ellie's time, which is 40.85 seconds. Just let me know when you're ready.
Ready.
Go.
Red, black, green, blue, yellow, red, blue, red. Oh yeah, that's yellow, black, red, green, red. I mean black, black, blue, green, blue, red, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, black. Yellow. Oh, where'd I go? Oh, green, red, blue, yellow, yellow. I mean black, black, blue, yellow, black, no, red, black, green, red, black, blue, green, blue, red, that color, and then black. Oh my God, that was hard.
Okay, Noah's
Oh my.
time was 53 seconds, so Ellie won.
That was hard.
Good job.
Alright.
I was trying to say the word.
It was really hard to do that, wasn't it? Especially when you had the pressure of everybody watching you and your big time.
No, it's not that. It's just the word. I was trying to read it, not look at the color. My brain hurts now.
Your brain hurts. Well, did you know that? I don't want to like double facts on you right now, but your brain can't feel pain.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Alright, so take care of your brain. Your brain is one of the most vital organs in your entire body. Certain things like drugs can damage your brain, which you probably already know, which you probably shouldn't be doing. FYI. Certain things, while others like social problems or drawing can help. Your brain may only make up 2% of your weight, but it makes up 100% of who you are. So, treat your brain right.
So some different methods of taking care of your brain.
Whoa.
And fuel for your brain is eating well, getting enough sleep, keeping up your energy levels, which you can use healthy snacks for, paying attention in school. You may want to play an instrument, read, exercise, and others. So we're going to go back to activity number 1.
So,
I want you to
hand
do your pink cards.
me all your cards.
Oh, my brain really. Whoa, my brain is. I don't know what my brain is. Those are hard to do. I won't throw up.
Just sitting there like.
Alright, listen up. You got it right so far.
We got our handy dandy emotion board here.
If you can't see, you can come over.
You know, I'll actually, let's just read them. We can put them on afterwards. But we're going to read some of these cards. So we've got bad. That's one. Happy. That's pretty. It's crazy.
Hey.
Oh. Depressed as heck. Happy. Oh, that's nice. I like seeing that you guys are happy. Stressed. Sad but okay. Stressed. So that's 2 for stress. Scared. Okay. Sad because one of my homeboys got played.
Hey, that was me.
And tired. Alright, your turn.
So we have happy, happy, happy.
Happy mood?
It's happy, but there's another word. Why? Tired. They need me a little help with spelling.
Silly. Optimistic.
Oh, okay. Happy, pressed, amazing, stressed, and other happy.
So it seems like we got a bunch of stressed and happy people in here, which is pretty much opposite. We got some sad people, got some people that just kind of asked why. Your homeboy got played?
I want to add to mine.
You want to add? Well,
Yeah.
you can just add out loud, I guess.
My mind is like, woo! That explains a lot. I'm confused. I feel like I'm in a different world.
Like, in a different
So if you see, there are some similar ones, but there's also really different ones. You don't know who wrote down which card, except for maybe one.
I do.
But this activity was to show you that we are all feeling very different things, very different times of our lives, and we may not show it on the outside. But, you know, it's happening. It's here. It's right in front of you. It could be the person sitting next to you.
You never know what's going on in someone else's life, and they might need your help. So the best way to solve problems like mental problems specifically is by talking about it. So be the person to start that conversation with someone who is quiet or someone who doesn't talk a lot, or somebody that looks like they're just going through a tough time, because they might really need it, and you might end up saving that person's life.
That kid that may seem like he's a jerk or he's a loudmouth, whatever you want to call him, that's pretty bad. He could be in really a whole lot of pain right now, and that's just his way of going through it. Comfort is he's putting up like a shield of armor.
Also, though, the person, like, you really never know what someone's going through. Like, the person who might smile the most, the person who laughs the most, might be the person who's going through the most. They might be the saddest. A lot of people have different ways of kind of hiding it. So, just like we've done for you guys today, talking about it, explaining things is really helpful. So, kind of to introduce ourselves, you're over there. Your arrow. There. Now you're blocking it. Oh, even better. Okay. So, you might want to know why we care about this so much. And it's because, for me, I want to grow up and I want to be a psychiatrist. I want to make it my job to help people out with their mental, emotional problems.
And I'm gonna be her first patient.
Well, Miss Kitty was actually part of my inspiration, though, to become one, because she taught me about the brain, and I was fascinated by it. I thought it was so cool that there's so much going on. Most body parts are kind of the same for everyone, right? Like, everyone's heart is built the same way, they function the same way, unless you got something seriously wrong with you. But everyone's brain is so different and so unique, and I thought that was the coolest thing. So I wanted to make my life about learning more about the brain and helping people out with theirs.
Now with me, I relate to this topic because I was a victim of stress, anxiety, even depression, which it took me years to finally admit it to myself. I mean, I started going through all this in 8th grade. The grade you're all in right now, that's when it started happening to me.
How many days of school did you miss, do you think?
I missed quite a few.
Abby was basically truant back in 8th grade, because mental health problems can have physical effects on you. Like, Abby's stomach hurt every single day
I
at
was
school.
sick every day.
Every single day. Yeah.
What's true?
It means you miss school a lot. Yeah, but Abby missed so much school because her stomach was constantly hurting, and she went to doctor after doctor, and they couldn't really give her an answer until one of them said, well, maybe you just have anxiety. And she could never actually admit it to herself until recently. But admitting it to herself is what leads to relief and talking about it.
Now, I finally admitted to myself, and I was able to sort of get squared away. I mean, I'm not depressed anymore, but I do still have my anxiety and my stress every day. I mean, I'm a junior in high school, so it's kind of guaranteed. But I'm on medicine right now that will help me get through it.
Did you also talk to a therapist? Did that help too?
I didn't talk to a therapist, but
Her doctor.
I'm one of those people that, like, they'll hold it in when I'm
Yeah.
in public, but when I go behind closed doors, I just let it all out. Right.
I know,
Hey, that's me.
I've talked to therapists before because I've dealt with depression. And when I've talked to therapists, I didn't hold anything back, because when you talk to them, you don't want to hold anything back, because you're defeating the purpose of being there. So it really helped me.
So there's a lot of actual medical answers for things like depression. You might think that it's just a made-up term, it's all about their emotions, there's nothing really wrong with them, but there are actual solutions for it in medicine. So that's what we wanted to talk to you guys about today. Thank you for listening, you were great.
Who got played?
I just got off the phone.
I'm guessing that's why you punched this locker.
Hey, where the locker? Oh, did you punch a locker? I know about the day.
Isabella,